Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for watching another book review. So, what do an aging hit woman, a 24-hour magic bakery, and a bio terror plot that flips gender on contact have in common? So, they all live inside the wild and generous imagination of Gu Byeong-mo. So, today I'm reviewing three very different works. So, first up is The Old Woman with the Knife, translated by Chi Young Kim. And then I'll do The Wizard's Bakery, translated by Jamie Chang. And then a short story called Mirrorism, translated by Beth Hong, which you can find online. So we'll meet Hornclaw, a 60 something assassin who turns society's habit of ignoring older women into her greatest weapon, a runaway who finds a bakery where pastries heal, curse, and complicate, always with consequences, and a man whose body begins changing into a woman's after a bioterror attack in a hospital, forcing everyone around him to show who they really are. So it's the same author, but three wildly different works. So first up, I'll start with The Old Woman with the Knife. Like I said, it's translated by Chi Young Kim, and Chi Young Kim is a very famous translator. She's translated works by like Shin Kyung Suk, like Please Look After Mom, and I think she's done a few Kim Young Ha novels and many more besides. And The Old Woman with the Knife was published in Korean in 2013. The English translation was published in March 2022. And the Korean title is Pagwa, which is entirely different from the English title. And so I saw an interview with Gu Byeong-mo where she explained this. So Pagwa, she said, it's a Chinese homonym that means bruised fruit and peak of youth, or the flower of life. And they chose this English title because that didn't have the same sort of meaning in English, obviously. And so she said this new English title was intuitive and intriguing. And it is very intriguing. So Gu Byeong-mo is a very prolific writer. And as you'll see today, her books cross a variety of genres and styles. So she's written best-selling young adult books such as Wizard's Bakery, which we'll get to in a minute, and award-winning short story collections. Mirrorism was in one of those collections, and ultra-violent crime thrillers like today's book. And this is actually her first novel to be translated into English. Very creative, very imaginative, and just a deeply enjoyable spin on crime genre tropes and conventions. It tells the story of an aging hit woman called Hornclaw. Hornclaw is a professional assassin now in her 60s, and she's led a life of crime and has murdered countless people. And as we meet her in the novel, is her past beginning to catch up on her? Will she be allowed to go gently into retirement, or will she herself be assassinated by by her employers or by somebody else? So quite an unusual character to be the hero of a violent crime thriller. So obviously, we're more used to seeing younger male assassins in these type of stories. So think, John Wick or something like that. So where did Gu get the idea for Hornclaw, and how is the character introduced? So I reviewed a year or two ago The Plotters, by Kim On-soo. And that novel is about a hitman in Korea who works for a shadowy organization of contract killers, much like Hornclaw. Well, it was this novel and films like Leon and Nikita that inspired Gu to create Hornclaw. And in an interview with Korean Literature Now, she said that around that time, an excellent novel had been published in Korea, Kim On-soo's The Plotters. The main character in that work is a young man who's smart, cynical, and strong. And I thought I would take an entirely different path. Seniors are considered weak and burdensome in our society, people who should be quickly pushed aside, and older women women are particularly mistreated. And so I thought a mature woman, someone who nobody considers important or even notices, should pick up a weapon. So this isn't just a rehashing of crime thriller conventions, although those elements of the novel are thoroughly enjoyable. It's also a commentary on old age, gender, and the expectations we have for women, especially older women, and specifically older women in modern Korean society. So, how does Gu write about old age and gender? Sorry, it's so hot here. I've got like 3 fans pointing at me just now. Uh, so how does she write about old age and gender? Like I said, she combines this sort of concern with these things with thriller and action elements, right? This is an action book. Is it a successful blend of these things? So yeah, Hornclaw is a great character, very enjoyable character. As we meet her in the opening pages of the book, she's on the subway and she is thinking about her aching bones and her sore feet. She's worrying about her also very old pet dog, which is at home, and she's having these very everyday thoughts. And then she gets up and skillfully and surreptitiously just slides a knife between a man's ribs and then walks off before anyone notices. And one of the skills that she relies on now is that older women are often invisible. She travels through the world unnoticed and unremarked upon. So she has weaponized society's general disregard for older women. And it's a great way of using genre writing to comment on an aspect of the world, right? And Hornclaw is aware that due to her age, like I said, she's now well into her 60s. She's slowing down. She knows she's near the end of her professional life. She's not as fast or as strong as she used to be, and she's making mistakes. And these are the thoughts that we all have these type of thoughts, right? We all have an appointment with our mortality. And Gu uses this sort of heightened environment of a crime organization for assassins to explore that, right? As well as these sort of gendered expectations that are placed on older women. So this book is inspired by things like Leon and Nikita, the Luc Besson films, and you can definitely see these influences, right? So in both of those films, it's been a while since I watched them actually, but in both of those films, we have an older man who's a professional killer, played by the same actor now. I forget his name actually. Um, he's in loads of movies though, right? Well, I can't remember his name, but he's fantastic in both those films. And he takes a young girl or a young woman under his wing and trains her to be an assassin. Now, if you imagine that the Natalie Portman character from Leon, right? She's like what 13 or something like that. Let's say that she's been trained by Leon and she grows up and she spends her entire life as an assassin like Leon until she's an old woman, right? So she's been so let's imagine she's been a professional killer since she's 13, and that's basically the life that Hornclaw has led, right? She was trained when she was young, and she's been killing people for decades. And we see a series of flashbacks that show how she ended up living this life. So she comes from a very poor background and she's struggling to survive, and she makes her first kill, and she's inducted into this world of killers, and she's just been there ever since. And the book also plays with another sort of common crime movie, crime novel element, right? The career criminal who wants to retire, right? Well, they've made their money, or they want to do one last job and they want to get out. The novel asks this question. It's a very common, very, very kind of maybe tired convention of crime films. Is it possible to leave a life of crime behind and just go into happy retirement? Can you swan off into the sunset after living a life of crime? So, and you have this idea in lots of crime movies of doing one last job, right? Getting out and escaping to somewhere to live the good life. And we have a great example of that dynamic in The Old Woman. She just wants to retire. She wants to put her aching feet up and stop killing people, right? So, if you like crime novels, I think you will really enjoy this. It fully embraces the violence and the crime and action elements. I thought it was very enjoyable. It's a lot of fun, and I mean, who wouldn't like a book in which a 65-year-old woman just murders and stabs and shoots her way through the entire story? So, if that sounds good, you'll definitely enjoy this. And actually, there's also been a film adaptation of this. Haven't had a chance to see it yet, but it comes from the director is Min Kyu Dong, who was co-director of a film called Memento Mori, which I haven't seen either. Apparently, it's a bit of a cult classic, according to the reviews I saw when I was researching this little my script here. And yeah, but it looks the trailer, it looks pretty good actually, and it did get some it got kind of mixed reviews, but it still looks pretty good. And I think it only came out this year. So it said that it was released in Korea. I've lost it now in April this year. I'm going to try and catch up with that. Try and catch up with the film adaptation sometime, and I might. I don't do many. I don't think I've done any film reviews yet, but maybe I'll do a film and novel comparison. But anyway, that was the old woman with the knife. So from invisibility as power to magic as responsibility. So Hornclaw survives because no one looks closely at older women. But in the next book, a young boy learns that every sweet fix comes with a bill. Different tones, very, very different tones. We have the noir of a knife versus the wonder of the Wizard's Bakery. But the question is kind of the same. What do our choices ultimately cost us? So let's move on to the Wizard's Bakery. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so the Wizard's Bakery, I have to say, actually, it has a very healing fiction cover, right? This healing fiction trend just now, all these books like The Rainfall Market and The Dollar Gut Dream Department Store, there's so many of them now, right? But they all have these very sort of similar kind of covers, right? So they're definitely marketing to the sort of same audience. Anyway, what is The Wizard's Bakery? So it's a quirky and heartwarming novel, and it is translated by Jamie Chang. It was published in Korea in 2009. The English translation was just published this year, and it's part coming of age story, part magical adventure, and it's a lot of fun. So the story follows a teenage boy who runs away from a very troubled home and stumbles upon a 24-hour bakery unlike any other. On the surface, it looks like a normal place. There's bread and cookies and a grumpy baker. But behind the counter, behind the scenes, so to speak, magic is very much on the menu. So think cinnamon cookies that curse your enemies, and madeleines that can mend a broken heart, or almond bars that help you relive the past. But of course, there's a catch. Each of these magical treats comes with some kind of consequence. And as the boy learns the ropes in this enchanted shop, he also learns about responsibility, about forgiveness, and about the very real power of a little bit of magic in our lives. So it's whimsical at times, it's quite weird in some very enjoyable ways. And it's no surprise that it became a big hit in Korea. And if you enjoy magical realism with some emotional depth, then I'd certainly recommend picking, excuse me, almost misspoke there, picking this one up. But what is the tone of this novel? So, The Wizard's Bakery really walks a fine line between whimsy and emotional depth. So, at first glance, it feels like a quirky young adult fantasy. There's this mysterious 24-hour bakery. There's magical pastries, a blue-haired assistant baking sweets that can fix broken hearts or help you forget painful memories. And it's very playful and creative, and it's kind of like stepping into a Studio Ghibli film. But the deeper you go, the more you realize that the novel has a real emotional heft to it. So the main character is this teenage boy. He's run away from a broken, abusive home. He has a very wicked stepmother, and he's been accused of something terrible that he didn't do. So even though there's magic all around him, it's not a light-hearted escape. It's more like the magic is used to reveal these sort of very genuine emotional scars that he is carrying because of this awful home situation. So the tone here is almost like it's magical realism meets coming of age with a bit of a sort of dash of Tim Burton or something like that. So it's beautiful and it's melancholy and it's reflective and it's asking big questions about guilt and forgiveness and obviously that magic can't really solve the big problems. There isn't really a magic fix for the problems that we carry with us. So while it might look like this sort of sweet little story about magical cookies, it's really about how people process pain and whether they can change and move on from that. So it's definitely more layered than it might first appeal. So will this book appeal to adult readers? It is marketed as a young adult book. So it is a young adult book, but it arguably transcends that label. And I think the big appeal for adult readers will be the way that Wizards Bakery blends the sort of magical element with these real life emotional struggles. So sure, it's about a teenager and there's spells and enchanted pastries, but the themes it tackles are very adult. So it's emotional neglect and guilt, forgiveness, learning to take responsibility for your choices, and the writing style, thanks in part to Jamie Chang's lovely translation, is accessible and imaginative, and it doesn't talk down to the reader. So instead, it's trying to pull you in with a sort of sense of wonder and then surprise you with this emotional depth. So you might come for the cinnamon cookies that punish your enemies, but you'll stay for the quiet, heartfelt exploration of how we try to make peace with the past. Um, so it even though it is labeled a young adult book, it kind of reads like a fable for grown-ups too. It's comforting, but it's not too sugary sweet, and that's probably why it's become such a cult favorite among readers. And okay, yeah, let's see. So yeah, so I would recommend this book, with a little caveat. So it's perfect for readers who, enjoy quirky magical stories that, aren't afraid to get a little introspective. If you've liked something like The Little Prince, this might be your kind of read. And it doesn't shy away from the darker or sadder parts of life. And that said, it's probably best for readers who appreciate something a little offbeat. It's not a fast-paced adventure story. It's more of a gentle allegorical journey through trauma, guilt, and the need for forgiveness, and it's wrapped up in this kind of surreal setting, slightly surreal setting. So, if you like kind of modern fables, this one might be for you. Okay, so we're gonna leave the candle lit magic of for some body shock horror. So mirrorism starts in a hospital bed and spirals into a social X-ray. After an injection, a man's body feminizes, and suddenly work, love, and safety are different games with different rules. So it's a very sharp reflection and a fantasy that exposes everyday prejudice. So I'm going to talk about a short story called Mirrorism, translated by Beth Hong. And the English translation for this is available on the Nabilera website. And the Korean title is the same, Mirrorism. Mirrorism. It was published in 2016 in the Hyundai Moonhak, and that's a literature magazine and journal. And then it was part of a story collection published by Moonhak Dongni in 2018 called Tan Hanae Munjang, a single sentence. And the translator of this story is Beth Hong. Beth was a journalist based in Seoul. I don't think she's in Seoul anymore. I don't know where she is. And at a recent book club discussion, or sorry, not a recent, this was, well, at a book club discussion sometime in the past couple of years, she explained that she wanted to translate this story because of the inventive way it tackles sexism, misogyny, and the microaggressions women in Korea experience. So, hold on one second. So this is a story tackling, very hot button issues here in Korea and around the world too. So the story was published at the height of the Me Too movement in 2016, and Mirrorism uses a very inventive strategy to comment on this issue. So it's a very intriguing concept. So initially, we don't precisely know what is happening. A man wakes up in a hospital somewhere in Seoul, and he's had an allergic reaction to something, and he's being treated. At some point, a woman pretending to be a nurse comes to him, gives him an injection, and says it's antibiotics. Seems perfectly legitimate. However, it's not antibiotics, and this person is not a nurse. She is part of a bioterrorist organization that is injecting men with massive doses of hormones that will physically turn them into women. There's been a string of such attacks, and this man is the latest victim. Over the course of the story, his male body will gradually transform into a female body. How will this affect his life at work, with his girlfriend, and what are the goals of this terrorist organization? So, like I said, it's a very good concept. And how do this man's colleagues and friends react to this transformation? How does he cope with it? So, he takes a couple of weeks off work to recuperate, but is understandably anxious about going back to the office. How will his coworkers treat him? He's postponed seeing his girlfriend. He says, I don't want her to hear my changed voice. However, he has to go back to work. And it's here that he first experiences the consequences of this transformation. He's sidelined and has projects taken away from him. And at one point, his boss says, it's awkward for us. How will you explain in detail your changed appearance to these people in charge who you've met and drunk with a few times? The man thinks to himself, I have a premonition that this would be just the start of many doors closing. His girlfriend breaks up with him, and increasingly, he starts to see that the way people treat him is markedly different from when he looked and sounded like a man. The doctor speaks to him as if to a village middle school girl at church. He increasingly hears sexist comments about his appearance, is belittled by co-workers, and is eventually assaulted by a colleague. So, what is Gu trying to say with this story? So there's a lot of things going on here, right? So at one point, Gu references the Franz Kafka story Metamorphoses about a man turned into a giant cockroach, and how this shows him the strangeness of the world when you don't occupy a role it says that you should, right? And the man in this story is made aware of his own unconscious biases about women and his assumptions, and shown what the reality is like for them. He's made aware of this alternate experience of reality. Later, he asks, why did this happen to me? He says he's a good guy. He never harassed any women, never touched a woman when she was drunk, etc. But then he says, hinting to a female coworker to fill up a client's empty glass, isn't this something we all do as part of working life? Telling a woman to work out and lose some weight? I just said that because. And so, this revelation he has of the death by a thousand cuts nature of the daily microaggressions his female co workers have experienced is at the heart of the story. So it's also tackling another hot button issue, so transsexualism. So how is Gu talking about this issue? So again, very interesting. The story is kind of asking what is gender? What is sexuality? What does it mean to be male or female? If we are all in some sense just a consciousness in a body, what do these categories mean, and how do they play into our lives? So there's a moment in the story when the protagonist looks in a mirror and says, my conscious mind and body are so thoroughly separated that I've never wished so strongly as this moment for one of them to be destroyed. And this evokes what Jan Morris, previously James Morris, wrote in their autobiography Conundrum. So, as she was about to go in for reassignment surgery, I went to say goodbye to myself in the mirror. We would never meet again. And I wanted to give that other self a long last look in the eye and a wink for luck. Gu's story seems to be playing with this idea. Who are we really beneath the outward signifiers? It's an interesting story and it's a great translation. So, okay, that's it. There are three very good examples of one writer's work. Have you read any of these stories? Which of them grabbed you the most? Do you like the sound of Hornclaw's ice cold killer, or the baker's bittersweet morality, or the brutal clarity of Mirrorism the most? So tell me what you think in the comments. And if this helped you find your next book, hit the like button and the bell and all that other stuff. And I was Barry. This was a Soul Book Club. And take care. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you in the next review.